from being enforced on those from 18 to 21 years old. That's because a federal law prohibits background checks on those under 21. The universal background checks law was one of 7 gun control measures recently passed by Democrats in Virginia. Tom Graham, Fox News.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's putting together a list of items for another coronavirus relief package, one that would include reopening schools. That's an idea that's being met with opposition, including from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. But Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul tells Your World with Neil Cavuto it's safe.
The media have been scaring people to death. The mortality for children 0 to 18 is 1 in a million or less. The mortality between 18 years of age and 45 is about 10 in 100,000. So we need to assess those risks and make decisions.
The measure likely to include additional unemployment benefits and assistance for healthcare workers. We're always told to learn from our mistakes. In Michigan, there's a guy who's earned from an error.
A man outside Detroit was given the wrong lottery ticket, but he probably wouldn't say that. Is this ticket hit for $2 million? The Michigan Lottery says the man stopped at a gas station to put a little air in his tire and needed change from the machine. He bought a $10 Lucky 7 scratch-off ticket, but the clerk handed him a $20 ticket by accident. They did offer to exchange it, but something told this guy to keep that ticket. Well, it worked, and that lucky customer who chose to remain anonymous decided to take a lump sum of about $1.3 million. John Saucier, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463. Are you or a loved one in need of wheelchair transportation? Do you have a medical appointment or family event you don't want to miss? At Access Medical Transport, they offer wheelchair accessible service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available at your convenience, let them help you get to your destination. To learn more about their wheelchair transportation service, contact them today, 646-6970. At Access Medical Transport, they treat their patients like family. Thank you, and be safe, Guam.
Hafidade, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't know how much more emphatic I could be about that. That's one of the phrases that we live by here on Tall Tales. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I read that Second Amendment every day as a reminder to all and sundry that we pay a lot of attention to the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the laws, etc. on Tall Tales. If I run across a good Second Amendment article, I will put it on the record here in Tall Tales. A good Second Amendment story means one about how efficacious it is, how important the Second Amendment is, who's trying to take away from us, who doesn't seem to understand it. And I have a story here that ran on the Red State website from the St. Louis area about some people who obviously don't understand what the Second Amendment is all about. Now, you may have seen on TV the news story about two people who live in St. Louis who were accosted by what looked like a mob of Black Lives Matter type folks gathering around in front of their house in a very menacing manner. And the husband stepped out in front carrying what looked like an AR-15, and the wife had a handgun. And we're telling the folks, don't come on our property. This is private property. So that was a couple days ago. Here's the latest. This is a story, again, from Red State. We've previously reported about the St. Louis lawyer couple who defended their home by displaying guns when BLM activists went onto private property, broke the wrought iron entrance gate, and allegedly threatened them. In a very troubling move for gun rights and self-defense, the St. Louis authorities got a warrant, went to his home and seized Mark McCloskey's AR-15 rifle he displayed in that incident. But it may be more problematic than that. Mark McCloskey appeared on Tucker Carlson's show last night and said that the rumor was that they might get indicted soon. That is, that McCloskey and his wife might be indicted. McCloskey described how the police came to his house almost apologetic about what they were doing. They didn't want to have to be there. They were doing their job. Patty, that's McCloskey's wife, wanted to take a picture to document it, and she asked if they wouldn't mind facing away from the camera so that people wouldn't get mad at them if their faces were shown on TV. McCloskey told Fox News' Tucker Carlson. Carlson noted the irony of how the police didn't come the night of the incident when the couple was allegedly threatened, but they did come to get the rifle, the McCloskey's protection. My attorney, there's a quote, my attorney advised me not to be on the show tonight because the rumor is that we are going to be indicted shortly, McCloskey continued. Having said that, this is the same circuit attorney that released 35 of the protesters that torched and looted downtown St. Louis. But now she wants to indict me? I didn't shoot anybody. I just held my ground, protecting my house. And I'm sitting here on television tonight instead of dead or putting out the smoldering embers of my home. End of quote. Insane, isn't it? Given his situation, very brave of him to tell the truth about the circuit attorney, Kim Gardner, and he's right on target with that part, which is part of the problem. But McCloskey said people have to stand up to this and take some risk. One of the basic reasons that America is the rule of law. And boy, I don't know, is America still America, where city officials are clearing the way for anarchists, looters, arsonists, etc., to take over American cities, establish the Capitol Hill autonomous zone in the middle of their city, etc.? I don't know if the rule of law is still something that we can be proud of in the United States. Repeating that sentence, one of the basic reasons that America is the rule of law. When you dispense with the rule of law and operate just according to political whim, you become a banana republic governed solely by the desires of those in power. Failure to prosecute crime and prosecuting non-crime further erodes that basic tenet. As we previously reported, Kim Gardner was backed by George Soros. And we all know who George Soros is. Mr. I'm a billionaire and I want world government. and I'm going to do everything that I can to subvert your government. George Soros, that George Soros. As we previously reported, Kim Gardner was backed by George Soros in her run for the job. We've seen this problem from the flip side before with Kim Foxx. I guess we should never look for a state's attorney whose first name is Kim. Kim Foxx, the Cook County state's attorney, over Jussie Smollett. So it isn't just about St. Louis or this particular case. It's about all the places where Soros has backed district attorneys with a similar desire to fundamentally transform the criminal justice system. The law should be on the Klitzkie side, in fact, if they are indicted, assuming that it's still applied. So this is really ironic, especially if you saw it on television, you'd know how ironic it is. This mob is outside these people's houses, these people's house. And what they're doing, they're standing in front of their own house. The husband has an AR-15, the wife has a pistol, and they're saying, no trespassing, go away. And in St. Louis, this would be a crime because we've seen how justice works in these major cities governed by Democrats, Minneapolis, Seattle, Louisville. What you're supposed to do, you're supposed to say, oh, please come in and help yourself. And can we assist you in that petition that you're running around with to abolish the police department? That's what you're supposed to do if you are woke. Yeah. Now, these two people, the McCloskeys, obviously aren't woke. I don't know if I could get their phone number. I'd put them in charge with who is one of our most noted wokesters here on the island, Real Joe Cruz.
Jimmy, sir.
Yeah, not Jimmy. Not our Jimmy.
Oh, not our Jimmy.
James W. Moylan.
Oh, Woke Moylan.
Yeah, James Woke Moylan, yeah. Not Jimmy. So much for the Second Amendment. And in St. Louis, yeah, so much for it. A nice sentiment, but apparently it doesn't mean very much in St. Louis. You know, we have to be careful who we put in office. And the reason that so much of this stuff is happening, these people way out on the radical left, because nobody is opposing them. Nobody's fighting back. No one is sitting in front of a microphone except guys like me and Rush and Sean and guys like that and saying, this is BS. This is not the way governments operate. Too many people are willing to say, well, Black Lives Matter, they have a good point because there was a lot of injustice in the past. And of course, the G word comes into play here, gullibility. Gullibility is a fundamental element of the useful idiot. The kind of folks that would go down to the Paseo, properly dressed up, kneel on one knee for over 8 minutes and tell all and sundry that they are white coats for Black Lives Matter. And here you go. This is Black Lives Matter in St. Louis. This is what you're signing up for. Okay, so much for that. We may. I'm working on the details. We may have an in-studio guest right after the halftime show. It's something I'm working on right now. You know that for Tall Tales, that's a rarity. We don't usually have in-studio guests, and the reason that I have in-studio guests is not because they're guests, not because they're really nice people, not because I want to make friends with them, etc., is because I have determined that they have something to say that would be of interest to my international radio listening audience concerning the topics that I'm always jabbering about here on Tall Tales. Thus, I had Joanne Brown as a guest not too long ago I think it was right after the wolf came in and settled all of the remaining Port 7 cases at the port. And you know what my analysis of that whole Port 7 fiasco was. So that's why I had Joanne Brown come in, and she did not disappoint. Okay, so next we go straight to Zemi Ikotny. So, as usual, the Daily News has a piece from the USA Today editorial board, and this is what it says: try to reopen schools. As the nation's 13,000 school districts are grappling with how and whether to resume in-person student attendance falls, there should be one guiding principle: try to reopen schools with appropriate safety precautions wherever possible. Wow. How do you say this in WhatsApp, Real Joe Cruz?
Oh, face palm, sir.
Yeah, but isn't there a set of initials? Is it FP or? No, huh?
I forget, sir.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a face palm.
Definitely. I'd have never thought of that in a million years. It's no wonder they're always running this USA Today claptrap on the Daily News and the Daily News editorial, because they're so much smarter than we are. As the nation's 13,000 school districts are grappling with how and whether to resume in-person student attendance this fall, there should be one guiding principle: try to reopen schools with appropriate safety precautions wherever possible. That's just a stroke of genius. Okay, then we go to the Post. And the Post says workers unemployed before the pandemic need help. I got to grab my blue pencil there. Okay. The Guam Department of Labor will have dispersed $195 million in Wuhan virus unemployment benefits to displaced Guam workers by next week. The federal government provided this money to help Guam's nearly 34,000 private sector workers who were laid off, furloughed, or took reduced hours because of the pandemic economic fallout. Without the federal government's funds, Guam's unemployed would be struggling even more. But the federal unemployment assistance funds will not last. Guam doesn't have an unemployment program it could pay for on its own once the federal funds for our jobless programs end. The end date is December 2020. And next month, the weekly benefits will be reduced to just a third. That's $345 instead of $900. The private sector's nearly 50,000 workers have been severely hit by the pandemic-hit business closures. Nearly 68% of the total labor force in Guam's private sector have been without jobs or had to get by with severe pay cuts. But the ripple effect of the pandemic on Guam's labor force is greater. There have been at least several thousand working-age, employable Guam residents who have been classified as, quote, out of the labor force. These are able-bodied adults who didn't have employment when the pandemic hit, so they didn't qualify for current unemployment benefits. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
If you didn't have a job before, when the unemployment benefits come along, you're not really unemployed.
True, sir.
Yeah. These are people whose households will be severely affected when the federal economic impact relief money runs out and when the moratorium on rent eviction is lifted. And the chances of pre-COVID unemployed Guamanians landing jobs in the next few months are slim in the short term. Our tourism industry, according to the governor's projections, will probably not see a significant rebound of tourist arrivals until early next year. Tourism's full recovery is a year or two from now, according to the governor. Our elected officials will have a lot on their shoulders to resolve. Granted, they get reelected in November, along with the new faces who will make it into the legislative race. The current set of officials should put more effort into finding solutions for these concerns. It's the humane thing to do. These can't wait for more tomorrows. Well, I think I have a solution here. Our economy is a two-legged stool, tourism and the military. So if tourism is really in the tank, then we need to encourage outfits like Proteji Litexan, the Finogi Coalition, etc., and these groups that are doing everything they possibly can to slow down the construction of Camp Blas. Because the longer we can keep the military out of here, the more jobs we'll have. Right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That, of course, is exactly the opposite of where we're going. So, but that doesn't make any difference. We'll go out and we'll make a big fuss about pottery shards and not really care about all of these folks that are unemployed and aren't going to be employed if we depend on nothing but the tourist industry. So we have this big company called the United States Marine Corps that wants to come in here and start doing business here and provide a lot of really good jobs. So it's in our best interest to show them that we don't want them here and to make it as hard as we possibly can for them to relocate to Guam. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Okay, fair editorial post, not a Blue Star quality, I'm sorry to say. Did I have somebody on line one?
That was R. Carl, sir.
R. Carl?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what, did he get impatient?
I guess.
Sorry, R. Carl. Hate to keep you waiting so long. R. Carl, if you want to call back right now, I won't start something else until you call in. The care and feeding of R. Carl. Okay, so absent R. Carl, I go to the card. Little louder. Okay. And I start out with Troy versus Janela. And let's see, it has now been 56 days since the Paco pronouncement said that Janela did not need to apologize. I'll come back to this in a second. I don't want to keep R. Carl waiting. He's got a lot of other things to do. He's got a lot of other fish to fry. Or maybe he poaches his fish. Let me find out. Carl, when you cook fish, do you fry them or do you poach them?
Always fry.
Never poach, huh?
No.
Well, that's probably good. It'll probably keep you out of jail, which you'll find out about a little later in the program. So what wisdom did you want to share with us this afternoon, R. Carl?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little note about that couple in St. Louis, the McCluskeys.
Uh-huh.
I've read in a post by a publication, and someone else said they read something similar, that the McCluskeys are actually, they lean left. They're probably Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually supportive of BLM. I don't know if that is true now, because they've gone through this experience. They're still going through the ringer. And, so a lot of people aren't aware of that. And they actually are lawyers. And I've read also that they, in their career, they've often worked with poor people. I don't know if that means pro bono, free work, or if they took certain cases from the government, I don't know, but they have often defended people who were poor. So it's just kind of ironic. There's a saying that I've heard, a quote that goes, often a conservative is a liberal who got mugged. And I think Mr. and Mrs. McCluskey got mugged.
Frank Rizzo, former chief of police, Philadelphia. The definition of a conservative is a liberal that got mugged last night.
Oh, yeah, very good. Yeah, you know the historical connection. I remember a 911 call I heard on a video on YouTube, and it was in one of these major cities where the neighborhoods were getting burned to cinders, and this head of a family had called into the police and asked, said that, our house is being attacked, can you send someone? And the 911 person that answered said, I'm sorry, the system is overwhelmed right now, just do what you have to do. And they hung up.
Right. Yeah.
So this incident, ironically, or these incidents spread out across the United States, these attacks and burning of neighborhoods and businesses, they've actually resulted in a huge spike in gun sales. So it's actually been probably the greatest gun marketing strategy of the 21st century so far.
Yeah. Well, there's another interesting element here, Carl, and that is that those who study them say that in revolutions, sooner or later, the revolutionaries turn on their own. And our friend Frenchie, I'm sure, could give us good examples of that from the French Revolution, where the revolutionaries began to eat their own. So I just read this morning that the Black Lives Matter folks put a guillotine out in front of the house of Jeff Bezos, who is a very rich man, but has donated billions and millions of dollars to things like BLM and these other things. But doesn't matter. He's the establishment. He's successful. He's rich. So he has to be brought down. And that's really what this is all about. It really isn't about race. It isn't about color. It's that whole thing about the issue was never the issue. The issue is the revolution.
Yeah, exactly. And Thomas Sowell has a quote, and I wish I had it right in front of me, but basically the thought is that what many leftists don't understand is that when you concentrate power in the hands of a few leftist elites in order to create a social justice utopia, you've also created the perfect conditions to create totalitarianism and authoritarianism. And that isn't something they're counting on. They're only looking at, if we give this small elite group power, that they're going to create a utopia. And that's all they think about. When the Cuban Revolution had proceeded along, Che Guevara and Fidel Castro started to expose their brutal side, and many of their followers objected. They weren't on board with this. They just wanted to create utopia, and their reward for opening their mouths and protesting was they were thrown in jail, and some of them were killed.
Well,
they tend to. This tends to go back on itself and eat its own tail at some point. So we're seeing some of that.
Yeah. So I think the key word there is brutal. That those who would fight against brutality oftentimes are subject to brutal behavior themselves. Right, Carl?
Yeah, exactly. It eventually curves around, and the snake starts to eat its own tail and consume itself little by little.
Okay,
anyway,
Carl.
Bob, thank you very much.
Thanks for chiming in, Carl. We got a short break coming up here, and I will return to Where did my Zoom? Where did it go?
It's another Joe, sir.
Okay, I lost my.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They're open in Agana and they're ready for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them now, 479-2652, and get your Mezcla fix today.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are, back again, and I've got we got a pair to draw to, R. Carl and another Joe, salt and pepper, right? Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, Bob. So I'm just curious, has anyone thought about circulating a petition to deport George Soros? Because I think he became a U.S. citizen after they kicked him out of the UK because he was messing with their currency or something. I don't know all the details. But
he's not a United States citizen, another Joe?
He's not?
He is not he's not a United States citizen?
What is he a citizen of?
Well, I thought he was a United States citizen. Once upon a time, he was a citizen of Poland, but I thought he was a United States citizen. Right?
Well, I was wondering, has anyone thought of deporting him? Because he's been causing trouble for multiple presidents, Republican presidents. Like he was trouble for George W. Bush, and he's doing stuff like they were. You know how the Democrats were questioning Trump. So, well, you're not it's illegal for him to try to influence foreign policy before he was in office. And here you got a guy like George Soros going around trying to influence foreign policy. Has he done anything illegal? Is it a different set of rules for billionaires? What is going on? How is he getting away with all this stuff? I don't know, but it just seems like he must be doing something that could be seen as illegal. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know that any of the things that he's done are against American law. He has a lot of money that he throws around, and he tries to influence politics to take the country in a certain direction. But that's kind of the price we pay for living in a free society.
I was watching a PBS documentary years ago, and I guess they were showing Liberia, something going on in Liberia, and then lo and behold, they had this guy George Soros show up and start giving advice to their leaders as to how to play the George Bush administration, how to benefit from this diplomacy in Africa and stuff. And it's when you look at his game plan, his MO, where he's some sort of a socialist, if not worse. You're like, how can this guy get away with this stuff? I sympathize with him. He was, I guess, a Nazi survivor of the Nazis. But if you put this guy in Israel, right? I wonder whose side he would take. Would he take the side of the nation of Israel, or would he take the side of the West? I don't know what they call it anymore. It used to be the PLO, and then it was the Arafat government. But I kind of wonder which side he would take, and whether Israel would even want him there. Looking at his history. Hey, I don't know if it's a break time or what, but so are you planning to go to the what is it, the session where they vote on whether or not we're going to have the primary?
Well, they're not. They're done for today. So the bill for doing away with the primary went to third reading, so it will be voted on, but it won't be voted on today. It may be voted on tomorrow. But no, I'm not planning to go to that session. There's really not much to see when they vote on a bill. The roll is called and senators answer, and that's it. The part you want to watch is a debate. I watched some of it this afternoon, and I was wondering where Will Castro has been all this time, because he had a point and he articulated it very well, exactly the way we would expect a backbench sharpshooter who is a minority leader to conduct himself. But he didn't do that when he was a minority leader. He was more interested in making friends with the Democrats. So he handled himself very well. I saw Mary Torres, who apparently thinks that the way to persuade someone is to say the same thing over and over and over again. Like if the first time you say it, they're not convinced, maybe if you say it 25 more times, the person will be convinced. And then I heard Raging Lee, and Raging Lee, I thought, handled herself pretty well too. Now, both Castro and Lee took the same side, took what I think is the correct side, so I suppose I'm a little bit biased, but that's all I was able to watch today. I'm looking forward to tonight's TV or YouTube or something like that so I can catch up, because this doing away with the primary election is a serious, serious matter, far more serious than saving some money and the outbreak of a disease. Anyhow, I'm not going to go, Joe. Another Joe.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the voters respond to their decision, and if they hold the 35th legislature to account, especially the senators who are attempting to get reelected. It's going to be really interesting to see, who they hold accountable if they do away with the primary. And it's definitely a time that we should all be paying attention and participating in our government and our democracy. Yeah, come up. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll just keep listening.
Okay, another Joe. So, Real Joe Cruz, I lost my stacked VIP here somewhere in the process.
We'll check it at halftime, sir.
Very
you have
good.
Mark on line 1.
Okay. I have a caller who wants to make his mark.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, this previous caller.
Yes.
Concerning the primary election.
Yeah.
I think canceling the primaries won't really be too bad, because there's 15 Democrats and 15 Republicans running, right?
That's true.
And the only one that's going to hurt is if there's more than one Republican and one Democrat congressional seat seeker.
True enough.
So basically, it's not a mayoral election. It's not a gubernatorial election. It's just for the senators. So it would save a lot of money if they just to carry both 15 over, since there's 15 and 15, and all 15 are going to make it to the general. The only bad part is if it's one-on-one heads up for the congressional seat, then that's a slam package. don't need a primary for that.
Well, there are two Democrats and one Republican for the congressional seat, so
There's the hiccup.
It'll have a real huge impact on them. But my objection is this, Mark. My objection is this. Let's use our imaginations a little bit. So somebody says, "Hey, when is the primary going to be? When is the next primary going to be?" And the answer is, well, that'll be about August 29, 2022. But we can't really be sure because it depends on who's running.
There you go.
You get it?
Yeah.
In other words, once we know who's running, once all of the candidates have been identified, and then we start changing how we're going to run the election or whether or not we're going to have election, it may not hurt any particular candidate, but it does extreme violence to the idea of having an election. So if we want to save money, instead of having an election, we could maybe flip coins or draw straws, or we could have San Nicolas and Underwood play Junk and Poe, and the winner goes to the general election.
There you go.
Yeah, because, in a democratic society, there is really nothing more sacred than elections. That is the essential element of it. Excuse me, Mark, pardon me. That is the essential. That's the essential element of a democratic society, and it's something that should never be changed after we know who the candidates are.
True, but like I said, if they decide to do it, the only one that's going to lose is the Democratic side on the congressional seat.
Well, if you buy my argument, Mark, the only ones who are going to lose are the people of Guam, because we've seen our democracy eroded. So if we do it this time, next time, then we wait and see who the candidates are, and then we decide after we've identified the candidates how we're going to fiddle around with the election. Because there's a lot of speculation as to who is helped and who is hurt by not having the primary. You heard, if you watched the legislature today, Will Castro made a long impassioned speech because it would impact on him, and that theory is that some Republicans would cross over and vote against the person in the Democrat side that they don't like instead of voting for Castro. The other side of it is if all three of them run, that the Democrat vote would be split. Well, these are the kinds of conversations that we should never be having after we've identified the candidates, because it looks like fix.
Yeah, but one of the main reasons why we're talking about canceling a primary is because of the COVID.
Yeah, so
this doesn't happen again.
So, we can hope, but should the rule then be you could fix an election when their COVID is in town, or should the rule be once you set the date for an election, you go forward with it?
No, and that's the thing. The current atmosphere right now is nobody wants to open. The COVID is running rampant, and everyone's scared. Well, so that's maybe one of the reasons why they're throwing this up. When we don't want to, like what's happening in the States, when they're seeing that because they opened too early, yada yada. They had protesters out at the thousands, but nobody seems to be mentioning that one of the main reasons why they got more and more cases is because they're doing more and more testing.
That's true, but my point is this, Mark, that having an election, once you've identified the candidates, should never be a balancing test. You should never say, well, yeah, we know who the candidates are, and the election is scheduled, but, we have to balance that against something else. You should never balance it against anything. If we had been having this conversation a month ago, and we certainly knew about the Wuhan virus a month ago, we knew how much the election was going to cost a month ago. If they decided a month ago to do it, I probably wouldn't object. But after we've identified the candidates, and then to go into panic overdrive and say, well, now we know who's running, we got to cancel the primary, that just smacks of fix and corruption.
Yeah. So does that sound like a conspiracy?
It takes two people to have a conspiracy. It only takes two.
Yeah, that's true. On another point.
Yeah.
You ever notice? And I'm being retired now, I got time. I've been watching a lot of different news feeds on this BLM protest and all this good stuff. And then the conversation came up with George Soros.
Yeah.
The reason why George Soros gets away with what he's getting away with in support of all these, I think last election, he backed up about, I think it was like 50 or 48 attorney generals for individual states.
That's true, yeah.
It was a very big contributor to them,
mm-hmm.
but not from him specifically. From his multitude of companies or organizations that he gives money to. That's the same with the Black Lives Matter. You send you want to contribute to Black Lives Matter. They don't have an organizational chart because I've looked, and they don't have a financial chart. If you type in blacklivesmatter.org or whatever the website is,
mm-hmm.
make a contribution, you're contributing to Act Blue.
That's right.
And Act Blue is a Democratic super PAC.
Exactly.
So when someone turns around, it's like you say, you have 1 million people gathered around, and if 10,000 people make more noise than the 9,900,000 or the rest of them,
yeah,
then those 10,000 people's voices will be heard. So when everyone starts talking about this, about that, about the Black Lives Movement, and if you look at some of the protests, I've watched quite a few, majority of the Black Lives Movement protests that are out there yelling and screaming and talking smack to the cops and all this good stuff, watch it, because 92% of them are white. And you have more black people yelling at the white people, telling them, you don't know what you're talking about, and that they're talking about oppression and all this to a black guy.
Well, you don't have to be black to be a Marxist. That's the point, Mark.
Yeah, and you don't have to be white to be racist.
There you go. Hey, Mark, great call. I'm really glad you called in. I got to take a break.
All right, now you take care, Bob.
Thank you, sir.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Talk to Us with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Okay, so here we are again back on Tall Tales, and I have to announce we're going to have a special treat for you after the big halftime show. We're going to have another video and a distinguished guest who will comment on the video. So I don't have to urge you to stick around till after the halftime show. I know you're going to do that. Just make sure you got your popcorn, you're all set to go, so you won't have to get up after the show starts, after the big halftime show. Okay, so let's see. I haven't even started the card, have I, Real Joe Cruz? So let's see, what have I got on the card today? I've got Troy versus Janela, and we're up to 56 days now since the Paco pronouncement that forgave Janela of any responsibility to apologize for muting and cutting off reporters. And the Paco pronouncement said it wouldn't happen again. So it's been 56 days and Janela hasn't done it. But we're going to keep watching. And then Tina is up to 8. It's been 8 days now since Tina saw something that was so emergent that you'd have to call the legislature into session and waive public hearing requirements for bills. And as far as Louise is concerned, I think we're up to 10 days since Louise distinguished herself. Louise Muña, you'll recall, didn't realize that if you have a $55,000 a year job, you're not entitled to unemployment insurance. So I've got that. Then I've got the kitchen police versus Dewey and Eikens. I've got Tom Fisher. Oh, and by the way, going way back up to Troy versus Janela, there will be some breaking news on that one tomorrow that I'm not quite ready to come forward with today. Kitchen police versus Dewey and Eikens. Tom Fisher versus Levin. And then I've got the Popular Front for the Liberation of Nerds versus James W. Moylan. And the W stands for what, Real Joe Cruz?
Walnuts, sir.
Walnuts?
No, woke.
Very good, Real Joe Cruz. And then we're going to finish up with Cops versus Ray Gibson. And as Ray mentioned on the Ray Gibson show this morning, he felt like something had really made his day yesterday when he finally made the card on Tall Tales. And not only did he make the card, but he walked away winners. The Tall Tales Court of Supreme Justice said that he was blameless, guiltless. And then we've got self-determination versus fear, which is still on the calendar. Mayo versus Adult Probation Services, Democrats versus Trump. So let me go next to, let's see, this one here. Yeah. Apparently, there's a part of the criminal law, I guess, that I wasn't aware of. Two gentlemen were arrested. One is named Hastig Dewey. He's 49. He's from Datado. And the other one is Pullman, P-O-M-E-N, Pullman Eikens, who is 58, and he's from Manilo. And the headline of the story is, Real Joe Cruz? The headline of the story is, 2 arrested in connection with poaching fish in preserve. And the story says, Department of Agriculture conservation officers arrested 2 people in connection with poaching fish in the Tumon Preserve, the department announced Monday. Now, I was really surprised about this. I guess Hastig and Holman were having like a cookout at Tumon. And instead of barbecuing their fish or frying it, they poached the fish. Yeah. So 2 arrested in connection with poaching fish.
Fancy, sir.
Well, I was, I've dealt with the law here on Guam for, it's been 46 years, and I never knew that poaching fish was a crime. And I'm a little bit worried now because, my favorite breakfast is poached eggs and taters. Yeah. So yeah. I'm wondering if the cops, in light of this case here, if the cops are going to pull a Matt Murphy on me and come busting into my house as I'm sitting down there with a plate full of poached eggs. But But that's the story. 2 arrested in connection with poaching fish and preserve. It's amazing what you can see here. Okay, and then we've got Tom Fisher versus leaving on a jet plane. Court requires disclosure of social media communications in double pay case. The newspaper always gets this wrong. And I have never talked to anybody at the Post, but I've talked to folks at the Daily News on more than one occasion. There is a mechanism in the law called a petition for writ of mandate, or more properly, a writ of mandate. A mandate can be granted on short notice ex parte if the defendant... Whoa. What a surprise, Real Joe
Sorry
Cruz.
about that.
Yeah. Can I stop talking now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a short break for the halftime show. When we come back from the halftime show, I'm going to break into something else. So stay tuned.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Jeff Sessions denied. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The former Attorney General, trying to reclaim his old seat in the U.S. Senate, has lost the Alabama GOP primary.
Jeff Sessions' defeat is largely seen as a likely end to his political career, and that's an outcome President Trump had been lobbying for. Former Auburn University football coach Tommy Tuberville beat Sessions in a runoff election and will now face off against incumbent Democrat Doug Jones. Sessions was dragged by the president after he, as Trump's Attorney General, recused himself from the Russia investigation. Trump endorsed Tuberville and tweeted, "Wow, just called. Tommy Tuberville won big against Jeff Sessions. Will be a great senator for the incredible people of Alabama."
Fox's Jackie Heinrich, the president, also tweeting congratulations to his former White House doctor, Ronnie Jackson, winning a GOP runoff for a congressional seat in the Texas Panhandle. The president taking on China and Joe Biden Tuesday, signing into law a bill requiring sanctions on Chinese officials who've cracked down on human rights in Hong Kong, and an executive order ending preferential U.S. trade treatment for Hong Kong, while calling out Joe Biden's criticism of him.
He opposed my very strict travel ban on Chinese nationals to stop the spread of the China virus. He was totally against it. Xenophobic, he called me. Xenophobic. A month later, he admitted I was right.
Joe Biden continuing to be critical.
Hospitalizations and deaths, two of the most concerning indicators of Trump's failed response, are already unacceptably high, and they are rising.
For the second time in 2 days, the federal government is scheduled to put a killer to death. Wesley Perkey, convicted in the rape and murder of a 16-year-old Kansas City girl in 1998, scheduled to be executed at a federal prison in Indiana, where Daniel Lee Lewis was put to death on Tuesday. America is listening to Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon, or call 646-1463.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
News.
The Trump administration changing the way that hospitals report coronavirus cases to the government.
Under new guidelines posted quietly to the Department of Health and Human Services website late Tuesday, hospitals will no longer share coronavirus data with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, but instead report it directly to HHS. Previously, hospitals were required to share that information with the National Healthcare Safety Network, a CDC system that tracked data such as bed and ventilator availability from nearly 25,000 medical centers across the country. HHS says the goal is to streamline data collection, but Democrats like Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren fear the president is playing, quote, political games that undermine Americans' health. Sean Lanchel, Fox News.
Fox 35 in Orlando uncovering serious discrepancies in coronavirus case reporting from some Florida hospitals, some not counting negative test results at all, which has the effect of making the state's rate of infection appear to be higher. Today marks the end of the road for an invention that had promised to revolutionize travel in the U.S.
Segway says it is stopping production of the Segway PT, the motorized vehicle that became popular with law enforcement and some tourists. It was introduced in 2001, but the company since expanded its business to include smaller electric scooters, a go-kart, even a personal robot. The company president said while the current global pandemic did impact sales and production, it was not the deciding factor in their decision. Last year, the vehicles accounted for less than 1.5% of the company's revenues. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Like the U.S. before it, Great Britain banning the purchase of communications equipment from China's Huawei, calling it a security threat. After an up day on Wall Street that saw the Dow gain 556 points, Asian stock markets have closed Wednesday mixed. Dow futures are trading nearly 290 points higher. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Becoming a homeowner can be a scary process, but it doesn't have to be, especially if you have the right guidance. Break through your fears and go to a real estate professional that will ensure a higher chance of success. That person is Lolita Cammett of RE/MAX Diamond Realty. Lolita also specializes in commercial leasing, land sales, local residential sales leasing, and military and corporate relocation. Don't be afraid. Call Lolita Cammett from RE/MAX Diamond Realty at 688-6743. That's 688-6743.
Woo, woo, wee! Just take a gander at them tender and juicy fall-off-the-bone St. Louis ribs. Heavens to Betsy! What is their secret? It's bursting with so much flavor, I can eat them all day long. Come see for yourself, y'all. These fine slabs of hunky-dory, mouth-watering ribs are only available at Circle K. Circle K. Take it easy.
Hofity, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are again after that wonderful halftime show that we've come to like so much. The marching band, the cheerleaders, the drill teams. We used to have synchronized car sections up in the grandstand, but nobody comes to the game anymore. And then that barrage of cannon fire at the end of the show. It just doesn't get any better than that. So here we are in the second half of Tall Tales, and we're going to go back to something that we've been covering the last couple of days. There was a story in the paper. The short version of the title was "Don't Be Afraid of Chamorro's Self-Determination," which, as far as I'm concerned, is don't be afraid of the separatist movement that would like to see Guam separated from the United States, become an independent sovereign nation. And we see demonstrations in favor of that particular initiative, oftentimes, usually based on some kind of a pretext, often an environmental wacko pretext. So last week I ran a video of a protest that took place down at the Kapua Loop. I'm going to run it again, and then after we run it, we're going to have an interview of the gentleman who was portrayed or was pictured in that video. You remember the video? I don't know exactly how to do this, Real Joe Cruz. The language has become so complicated now, but remember when you watched the video, they were screaming at them. Is that the way to say it, Real Joe Cruz?
I think so, sir.
Yeah, they were screaming at them. Well, nowadays, Paul, we can't use the words he or she. It's politically incorrect. So if I'm referring to Real Joe Cruz here in the control room, politically correct, I should say they are in the control room. Anyhow, the female in the video was asserting her point quite vociferously towards a male who seemed to be quite polite and patient and tolerant. So we'll run the video, and then we'll have that. We'll interview that particular male. Go ahead, Real Joe Cruz.
You're a colonizer. You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. Same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to go.
I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige Jordan tano di tau tano how waho bini tau tano waho bini manahoga waho short na guy you bini hago tata na short mo bini what's on you need to leave.
You need to go. Please. You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here. When I get a chance, go.
Thank you, partner. Please leave. No, you cannot.
What happened, ma'am?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
So just Malasi.
He's safe.
So there we are again. Let's get Paul on camera here, Real Joe. We got him there. There's Paul. Paul, taimamalo nai, karaho, taimamalo. Yeah, I guess you didn't know that, right? That you're without shame. You didn't know that.
Probably I'm without shame. You know, I don't claim to be perfect.
Okay, so
I get by on my good looks.
Yeah, me too. It works for me. Yeah. Okay, we got to get the camera adjusted a little bit there. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen out there in our international radio listening audience, I have here in studio Paul Zerzan, or is it Zerzan? I never know.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to remember who my grandfather was.
Yeah, okay.
Tarzan.
Tarzan, okay. Paul Zerzan. So, Paul is a gentleman in that video that pictures a chat that he had with a lady named Hope Cristobal. So we heard what Hope said, Paul, but because of the audio, we couldn't hear what you said. So would you like to tell us what you said?
Okay, well, first let me say this. I've been on Guam a long time, and we're all kind of family. And this is most unfortunate because there are many things about Hope that I share with her.
Yeah, but can you tell us what she said?
Okay, this is a demonstration about Black Lives Matter, an issue that I take very seriously. 2.5 times, black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by the police than white men. And we've seen atrocious examples. In Brunswick, Georgia, a black jogger was approached by 2 men, one with a rifle, one with a gun, and they shot him and killed him. And then the Attorney General tried to prevent the arrest of those men because they were personal friends of hers. And then we have...
what was it, the Attorney General or the District Attorney?
Probably District Attorney.
Yeah,
yes, okay, sorry. And then at the same time, a nurse, I think in Tennessee, was at home, and the cops come, busted down her door, and they shot her and killed her. And they had the wrong apartment, but I think if it was a predominantly white apartment, it was highly unlikely that would happen. And then we have the bird watcher in New York ask a woman to put the dog on a leash.
I think I remember the lady's first name, Karen.
Oh, I see. Okay. Anyway, so this is really, really bothers me. And before I came to Guam, I was in Washington State, and I'm in an interracial marriage. And for some reason, white supremacy and white nationalism is really strong in Washington State. And I suffered cases of problems with people who just can't, hung up on being white. So anyway, Hope Cristobal came with a sign about decolonization. And it seems to me she's trying to hijack. This is a demonstration about Black Lives Matter. And I'm not going to show up on a demonstration about decolonization with a Black Lives Matter. This is crashing the party, right?
Okay.
And, it's unfortunate. And I told her, I said, please don't hijack this. And then, unfortunately, she blew up on me.
So you said, please don't hijack this.
Yes. I really believe I said please. But if you know me, many people may think he probably didn't say please, okay? But I said don't hijack this. That was all I said.
Yeah.
Because this is not a demonstration about gay rights or save the whales or decolonization. This is specific, the issue of the time. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And black people do not seem to be getting a fair deal in America.
Okay, well, let's stick with your encounter with Hope.
Okay.
So then what happened after that?
Well, she blew up on me. And then, kind of like that poor bird watcher in New York Park, people see I'm the white guy. And I'm not saying anything, and she's screaming at me, but they start chanting, what did they say, get out of here or go home or something. And
you have to go.
Yeah, you have to go. And nobody asked me what I said. Well, I'm here for this important demonstration, so I did not go home, but I snuck around the bushes.
Let me just stop you there for a second. Now, this was down at the Kipua Loop, right?
I think so. It's near the Paseo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it out inside the traffic loop?
It wasn't exactly at the statue. There are too many people there. We were more down, if I recall correctly, closer to the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, closer to the market.
But for sure, this was public property.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So for sure, you had every right.
Well, they assumed
you had every right to be there. Correct?
Perhaps,
yeah.
But
and you weren't breaking any laws.
No. Yeah. But they assumed that I was there to oppose the protest, which I may have a right to do, but I don't think I should. I think I should let other people have their demonstration for decolonization. I don't show up and argue. And so I was there to support the protest. But unfortunately, all of us at times make assumptions. And when you assume, you make ASS, you and me, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So that's unfortunate, but that's not the big issue. The problem is, in many ways, I actually like and admire Hope Cristobal, but politics and religion is always the big divider. And if we didn't have that barrier between us, we might be buddies. And if you go to YouTube and she talks about her life and opens up, her father was a U.S. Marine from the mainland. So growing up, people probably didn't say she was Chamorro. In those days, they probably said she was Chamauli or Haole Chamauli, right? But now she identifies herself as being indigenous, right? And she grew up in a family of 8. Her parents had 8 kids. And she also touches on something that I grew up in an Army family of 12. And in both our families, alcoholism was an issue, right?
You got this off her Facebook page?
No, from YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Hope Cristobal.
Okay.
And I think the very first interview, the most recent one, she describes her life.
I got it.
And then the other pictures you look at, she was a beauty queen with a liberation, and she was quite a looker. And in fact, I think she's retained some of her looks, right?
I don't think we're supposed to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway,
Politically
I don't think she would argue with me on that one.
Yeah.
But there's so many ways. You know, Guam is a small place. We all should be friends. And the biggest problem we've had is we haven't had a typhoon in 20 years. When a typhoon comes, we all unite and become a family. And then between typhoons, we find things to not like each other about. But typhoons are the big uniter on Guam. And so we're overdue. And if we have one, then I'll get out and help her clear up her yard, and she can help clean up my yard.
So back to this demonstration, how many people were there?
I asked about that, and I asked several people, and what the figure, and I can't remember what I said, but I think maybe it was like 800.
Really?
Maybe it was less. I can't remember the figure, but at the time I was very interested in the size of it, and except for Hope Cristobal, nobody else came to hijack it. We all were there on this issue, which I think is really, really important. And I want to say this about Guam. Hope's group is very organized, okay? But for 25 years, the government of Guam had tried to register people for a Chamorro-only vote before Dave Davis, and they've never been able to do it, never had the vote, because the vast majority of Chamorros agree with me that it's a bad idea to divide our community along ethnic lines, politically. It never works anywhere. And so, but they're a very small, very dedicated group, good at lobbying. And
So after, as you say, Hope went off on you, a
Right.
young man came along.
I wandered around, and a lot of people were kind of giving me the...
A young man approached you and told you you had to leave.
Oh, while she was shouting at me. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you know who he was or what?
No, I don't. I didn't ask. I didn't want to. I'm already dealing with Hope. And they've got the crowd shouting, "Get out of here." Is that what they were saying? Or,
you have to leave.
Yeah. And so already, this is extremely, I want to find a bush to crawl under. This is extremely embarrassing, and I'm not easily embarrassed. And people are making assumptions. And then I took off my mask, and I said, I am here to support Black Lives Matter. And they said, oh, that's fine, but you have to leave anyway. Okay? So like I said, I pretended to leave, walked around the bush. Yeah.
So when Hope was hollering at you, I could tell that you were talking, but because the audio didn't pick you up, were you talking in a very soft tone of voice?
I can't remember. The only issue I have with Hope is she's at the wrong demonstration. That's the only issue. Okay?
How about you didn't have an issue with her at hollering at you the way she did?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to holler back. I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
I've been married 44 years. I don't have any fight left.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I certainly had an issue. And then suddenly the issue was expanded by this guy showing up trying to throw me out and the crowd shouting, getting out of here. What are they assuming? Because I'm a white male that, that means I'm the racist or I'm against Black lives?
Well, you have heard me at more than one occasion on this program talking about identity politics.
Yeah.
And cultural Marxism.
I know.
And if you look at the identity politics theory, what happened is not what happened. It's the races, etc. Of the people involved.
That's an old story.
And that's the only thing that's important. So she's mad, and you're white.
Right.
So what else could there possibly?
Right. Exactly. It's like that lady in the park calling the cops and saying this black man is assaulting me because he asked her to put her dog on a leash. He's a bird watcher, right? But he happens to be black. And so my situation is not as serious as his, but I immediately relate to that.
See, I think it is as serious as his.
The cops aren't going to come.
Well, I don't care if the cops come or not. As far as I'm concerned, that, there's a demonstration in an area, a public area, where you have a right to be.
I know that.
And you walk up to a lady, and you're not making I couldn't see you making faces at her or making obscene hand gestures or anything.
No.
And she starts screaming at you. And because she's screaming at you and because you're white, you're supposed to leave. Now, that to me that's more serious than Karen and the dog incident in the park. Because it means that, it's classic identity politics. We don't care what happened. It's the race of the people involved. It's important. Nothing else is important.
Right.
And that's why I'm paying so much attention.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yes.
This is a classic example of identity politics.
Yeah, racism is what I call it. I could just call it racism. And it's unfortunate, but, slavery was America's great birth defect. And you just can't make a magic wand and make 400 years of this completely disappear. So racism is still a problem in America. And, what I really like to see is interracial marriage. And so this is the strange thing is Hope's dad was white. So I would, in theory, think that she would be more comfortable with, relating to other, and not being a racist. But that doesn't always work. Sometimes the worst racists are those that have some personal identity problem.
And see, that brings me back again to cultural Marxism and identity politics. It doesn't matter what your own particular makeup is. If you subscribe to the identity politics theory, nothing else is important.
Right. Yeah. And not just that, it's also in the folklore, separate from Marxism, where like in Guam, I'm an individual, right? And if I like to eat, put ketchup on my Pop-Tarts, well, people would be shocked. But if I say, oh, that's my culture, well, then they'll accept it. Well, it's right or wrong, regardless of whether it's my culture or my own individual eccentricity. But in Guam, I know that if I say, well, that's my culture, then people, oh, well, then that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, Paul. Well, is there anything you'd like to say to my international radio listening audience about that particular encounter? Are you going to go to the next Black Lives Matter demonstration?
Yes, I am, if there is one.
And if you see a hijacker, what will your response be?
Probably the same. I don't have any self-control. But if I were younger, I probably would lose it like she did, and we'd scream at each other. But I got high blood pressure now, and so that kind of puts a damper on things. And so this is astonishing. She's older than me, about 7 years older. And she's still got a lot of fight left in her.
How old are you, Paul?
I was born in 52, so I am 68 years old. And she was born in 1946. So, and I recommend going to her...
So she's how old?
I'm not good at math.
You're 52?
I'm 68.
68.
I was born in 1952.
All right, and so she's 75.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right.
And
so 68 and 75.
Right.
Couple of kids.
Yeah, I know. But we don't have your energy. We don't all age at the same rate, okay? And so, I consider this most unfortunate because I know who she is, and she recognized who I was. We live in Guam, where we should be kind of like family. But unfortunately, religion and politics and racist thinking...
identity politics,
are the real curse of mankind, right? Real curse.
And that's the reason that I keep coming back to this cultural Marxism and identity politics. This is not your garden variety racism. This is far more serious.
Well, I don't know about how far. Racism is always serious.
Well, this is far more serious than just ordinary racism.
Well, the trouble is it's communism, and they, you know, I know racists that at least have some, they put their beliefs out on the table, and you see what they are, where the Marxists follow no law or no rule, and they conceal what they're doing.
And the identity politics thing is a pretext.
Of course.
The saying is that the issue is never the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is the revolution. So this, you know, all of this racial injustice is a device,
of course,
to upset.
And the independence movement is not the issue. Their purpose is to get the American military out of the Western Pacific. Okay? They don't talk about Russians being Kaliningrad, but they talk about Americans in Okinawa. Okay? So they're working for the communist Chinese. Right? Whether they know it or not, that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And their entire purpose is to stop all military construction and demilitarize, get the American military out of the Western Pacific. And they work on this by catering to people's racism, and people don't understand what the master plan is. But they don't really care at all about Guam being independent. Get the American military out of the Western Pacific. Doesn't matter if the Chinese military is in the South China Sea or that Russia is in Kaliningrad. They couldn't care less about that. Yeah. So
I didn't think there was anybody else on Guam that knew what Kaliningrad was.
Oh, well, I read a lot of books. Okay. And they were smart. They went in there and took this big part of Prussia, and they removed every single German. Okay. And then they made it a part of Russia. And they moved, the houses are empty now because people are kicked out, so they could just move in Russian families and colonize it. And nobody talks about that. But, we could have done the same thing in Okinawa, but we didn't. So according to Bavakwa, we're the bad guys because we have military in Okinawa. And the fact that actually a lot of Okinawans like Guam support the military and benefit from it, but they're not organized and they're not manipulating the media. The communists in Okinawa are. And so anyway, yeah, that's the master plan. Get the U.S. military out of the Western Pacific. So it will be, you can argue that Chaco, he was Chinese, right? Mm-hmm. And the hairstyle that Angel Santos promoted is a Chinese hairstyle. So China can make the same claims they're making in the South China Sea, that they own Guam. They were here before the Spanish. And so these are some very serious things we need to talk about. But I don't know how we yell about it or not. But anyway, yeah.
So tying all this together, then hijacking the Black Lives Matter demonstration as just one more way of getting stopping the military buildup, getting the military out of the Western Pacific.
Right. They couldn't care less about any of the, I plant trees in southern Guam, and there are archaeological sites that need preservation. A lot of them have been damaged by off-road vehicles. And they don't care about that. Oh. They only care about what is on the base. And the fact that we have so much archaeological material on the base is because the military preserved it. Nobody cares about a hotel bulldozing everything.
Well, I think it was a couple days ago when I enlightened my international radio listening audience about how you could tell that a site on Guam was a sacred site. And the way that you can tell is when the military wants it, then it becomes sacred.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're probably going to take a seventh inning stretch here, Real Joe Cruz. And I really want to thank you for coming on board, Paul. You've added a lot of information to the program today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for inviting me.
Okay.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Okay, so here we are. We had an interesting interview with Paul Zerzan, who was one of the participants in the Hope Cristobal show, a video that I've played here a couple of times, and we'll probably play again if the situation requires it. Right now I got a caller on line one, and because I don't have a stacked VIP, Real Joe Cruz, you'll have to send me a code as to who it is.
I'll give you a clue.
All right.
Eiffel Tower.
Michel de la Tour Eiffel, right? Okay.
Oui.
Oui. Okay, good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
You're talking to us from high atop the Eiffel Tower, right?
Yeah, 300-meter high.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a ivory tower of sorts, except it's made out of steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting to listen to Paul. I had no idea it was him that was targeted by bassist, obviously very racist ladies. It was funny, it's always the people that don't feel good in their own skin that are the more radicals, like Bevacqua, who is, 1/4 Chamorro mestizos. So those people are always the ones that are the more radical, and that's very unfortunate. Earlier, you were talking with the other Joe, I think, regarding Soros. Actually, Soros' name came back by several of your of the people calling. You said he was from Poland. No, Soros is actually from Hungary. He was born in Budapest in 1930.
Yeah, you're right, French. Yeah.
Now, even though Hungary and Poland have a very long common history and a lot of common things, he was not Polish. But if not, he would not have survived. Because that's the interesting part of Hungary was part of the Axis coalition during World War II, but its government was a national conservative government led by Admiral Horthy, who was then had a coup against him by the pro-Nazi in 1944. And George Soros, actually, his real name is Georgi Schwartz. Right? They are Jews from Hungary. And what's interesting is that his father had been a prisoner in World War I in Russia, and then was exposed to the Soviets while he was a prisoner of war over there, because Hungary was with Austria, and they fought, of course, against Russia. And against one of those offensives, he was made a prisoner, ended up in Siberia. And he actually had contacts with communists within Hungary thanks to his contacts in Russia. And his father was a prominent lawyer and also a well-known author at the time. He was kind of a polemist. And he was part of a large family. But in 1936, while things were kind of brewing, his father decided to change their name to Soros because it sounded more Greek, more Christian, more, and so on. And then in the 1940s, they actually did fake papers for the family because the father was seeing that Horthy was losing his grip and the pro-Nazis were taking more and more space in Hungary. And so he started preparing places for them to hide. And he also got one of his Catholic friends to adopt George as his godson and pretend that they were Catholics. And that's how they survived the coup in 1944 for a year. But unfortunately, even though George Soros, who was only 14 at the time, he was one of those Jews that cooperated with the Nazis by denouncing Jewish families and by getting a bounty from their personal fortune. That's how he made his first money when he was 14. So he's been an evil person for many, many years. Then in 44, they continue hiding, and in 45, when the Soviets arrived to liberate, quote unquote, Hungary, they ended up, having a period of 2 or 3 years where the communists were in charge, but there was not, the Iron Curtain had not fallen yet. So then they were able to escape to England. And while in England, then he started changing his story, saying he had been a victim of Nazism and a survivor of the Shoah and all those things, which gave him access to pretty interesting education because he went to the London School of Economics. And he got his BA, his MA, and his PhD at the London School of Economics. And then not long after that, his older brother, Paul, was already in the United States. He moved to New York and started his own investment company. And basically, George Soros was a hedge fund manager. He first started working for other companies, and then he started the Soros Fund Management, which still exists. It's run by his son, Alexander, and his brother, Jonathan. And basically, they do hedge funds, which is probably the lowliest form of life in Wall Street. But and he's very famous for making money out of betting against national currency. And he actually in 1990 he made almost £1 billion British pounds betting against the Bank of England at the time. So he's a currency shark. And then starting the 90s, he created Open Society Foundation with an S at the end, which is a cover-up of foundation where he pretends to be a philanthropist, but basically there are political action committees, and he uses money to funnel those to different groups around the world. And he has a lot of contacts with more or less official spy agency, and that's how he's been able to do that. And because he has also what you call that NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are supposed to have, unpolitical ideas, but they're all pushing for something. He was able to intervene in a lot of places, and now in the U.S. he's a major political actor through his foundation and through his NGOs. He's funding. He was the founding member of Black Lives Matter. He's funding the money there. He organized the financing. He's the one that put that Rosenthal lady, which was a convicted terrorist of the weather movement, which was pardoned by none other than Bob Clinton, and who is now running the whole money scheme behind Black Lives Matter. And I'm a little surprised that Paul Zerzan is supporting them since he's such an anti-communist. But I guess we'll beg to differ on that issue. And his brother was also very successful. He died. His brother was older than him, born in 26, and he was a mechanical engineer by trade, but then he went into designing and developing bulk handling and port facilities around the world. And actually his company is present in more than 91 countries around the world. So those people have a lot of influence. They are pushing it in many different ways. So he is both a Hungarian citizen, even though he's been declared persona non grata by the president of Hungary. And the president of Hungary has also passed legislation so none of the George Soros foundations or NGOs are able to be present on the Hungarian territory. Poland has done the same thing. Of course, Russia has done the same thing because they know how dangerous the man is. He is very big actors behind the Ukrainian so-called color revolution, which is a CIA-backed operation with the neocons in the back, like the former candidate to Republican Mr. McCain and all those people. So, interesting character, very dangerous. And he's a U.S. citizen. Nobody has gone after him because he has basically plausible deniability. He's one of those kind of people. He has several layers of foundation organizations and things where he's not directly involved. And actually, he has kind of handed over a lot of the day-to-day operation to 3 of his sons. So that's why you cannot touch him, but he's a very dangerous person. So there you go.
Well, everything we wanted to know about George Soros, but didn't know who to ask. Very good.
So interesting character, and it's interesting because he's one of those Jews that is an atheist, and he's very anti-Zionist. So he's also a Jew who is very strongly against Israel. The Likud party in Israel has him on their hit list, and he's a big backer of the Palestinian freedom movement. So he's a very interesting, contradictory guy who made his first money selling Jewish brothers to the Nazis.
And he throws his money around a lot in American politics, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, in the 2018 campaign, he spent over $220 million supporting very liberal district attorneys. Mm. And we see right now some of the results of that policies. Basically, what they want to create is a situation of what's happening in Europe, where the police has their hands tied, the Justice Department does nothing, and unless you have IDs that are contrary to the doxa of what those people are pushing. And this is one way to get around the First, Second, Fourth Amendment, and they're doing this. You see it in St. Louis with that couple that try to defend their mansion. The local district attorney is one of those Open Society Foundation person that has decided to go and indict those people for exercising their Second Amendment, and it's just amazing. It's basically like termites. He's financing termites within our own democratic system. He's using our own democratic system against ourselves. And this is why he's so dangerous. And even if he dies tomorrow, there is no reason to rejoice because most of his children are in on it. So there is another generation behind and probably another one. So something we need to watch out for.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it here on Tall Tales. Well, once again, thank you very much, Frenchie. It's very enlightening.
All right, Bob, thank you, and thank you to Paul Zorzan for coming in online.
Okay.
All right.
So here we are. I think it's about time for the home stretch, Real Joe Cruz.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Woo-wee! Just take a gander at them tender and juicy fall-off-the-bone St. Louis ribs. Heavens to Betsy! What is their secret? It's bursting with so much flavor, I can eat them all day long. Come see for yourself, y'all. These fine slabs of hunky-dory, mouth-watering ribs are only available at Circle K. Circle K. Take it easy.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, so here we are heading down the home stretch on Tall Tales. That means I got about 10 more minutes to go before we hear the plaintive strains of Ravel's Bolero. Next item on the card is actually Tom Fisher versus Levin, but I'll probably have more information on that tomorrow, so maybe I'll hang on to that. Instead, go to the next item on the card, which is the PFFLPN versus James W. Moylan. And you know what the W stands for, Real Joe Cruz. What is it again?
Warrant, sir.
Say again?
Warrant or woke?
Woke. James Woke Moylan. And the initials stand for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Nerds. Now, James Woke Moylan spent a little time this afternoon, not very much, talking about his bill to cancel the primary this year. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, Mary Torres put forward a floor amendment simplifying the bill. And I haven't had a chance to look at it, but the way it sounded, her amendment was, the primary election for 2020 is canceled. Now, I haven't thought it through, but I wonder if you could do that in a bill, because a bill sets forward the law. It says, for instance, the primary election shall be on August 29, 2020. And bills don't usually command or forbid an action in those terms. So to say the primary election is canceled, and it's an uncodified section, so the law concerning primary elections is still on the books. So I'm wondering, is it possible for the legislature to pass something that doesn't look like a law? It looks more like an action. The primary election is canceled. Instead of saying something along the lines of the primary election provided for in section blah, blah, blah shall not take place during the year 2020. In other words, statutory language instead of almost what you'd expect the executive to say. I'm going to study that a little bit more, and I'll probably opine on that a little bit more tomorrow. But that's James Woke Moylan's signature piece of legislation. He wants to cancel the election. And, of course, you know that I think that is a really bad idea. And as per my conversation with Mark was talking about who it hurts and who it doesn't hurt. My analysis is it hurts us all when we think we can play fast and loose with an election once we know who the candidates are going to be or who the candidates are. You don't change the rules of the game after the game is started. So if you're playing baseball, and you have a ballpark and it's 300 let's say it's 275 feet to the left field fence, and when you see who's in the lineup on the other side, they've got some really strong right-handed batters. You think, 275, we better make the fence higher or move it back. So we've got a couple days till the game starts, so we'll change that dimension. Or one I mentioned the other day, basketball. You know, once the other team takes the floor, you say, whoa, that number 19 is a really good three-point shooter. Get the painter out here. We've got to move that three-point line back. But don't worry, it'll be done before the game starts. That's what we're doing here. We're changing the rules after the game has started. And just your basic sense of regularity, I suppose even I would use the word fairness here, says you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't change the rules after the game has started. Once the candidates have been identified, it's too late to change the game. But of course, James Walk-Moylan has been pretty busy with his hate crimes bill. That would be Bill 330-35. And something came up yesterday that caused me to think about it again. Here are the identity groups identified in James Walk-Moylan's bill. He's got, where is that section here? Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's not. I gave you the wrong bill number. Here are the identity groups that James Walk-Moylan has identified: race, religion, color, ethnicity, physical, emotional, or developmental disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, political affiliation, national origin, job or occupation, or ancestry. And listening to Ray Gibson's show yesterday, I noticed that there's a really significant omission there. I don't know how Jim did it, but he's got to add another identity group there. If he wants this group, if he wants this to go anywhere. Do you remember what the name of the identity group was, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sorry, don't.
Nerds.
Oh.
Remember that?
Yeah, nerds.
Yeah, and I even sent in a WhatsApp that if he doesn't change his bill, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Nerds is probably going to be down demonstrating in front of the legislature. You know, that gang with the pocket protectors and the high water trousers and the white sweat socks.
Yes, sir, and the broken glasses.
Broken glasses taped together.
Yeah.
With a safety pin holding them together.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You mean the people that rule the world right now?
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, you wouldn't want a crime. Wouldn't want those people to be victims of crimes just because they're nerds. So James has completely overlooked that identity group in his hate crime bill. So I don't know. I hope he's listening. Maybe he could do a floor amendment to insert the word nerds in there somewhere. Okay, so that's that bill. I'm going to save Tom Fisher versus Levin Camacho until tomorrow. And I did rule on Cobbs versus Ray Gibson yesterday. And I mentioned, I reiterated my ruling this morning that Ray was wondering if he had a problem because Matt Murphy was on his show. And I mentioned the law 9 GCA 55.15 is the law about hindering apprehension. And it means to harbor or conceal a person. And Ray was doing the opposite of that. He was making known the location of Matt Murphy. So it was the exact opposite of harboring Matt Murphy. So we also talked a little bit about what happens when a person violates the quarantine. And it's clear that that is a misdemeanor, and a person can be arrested for a misdemeanor. And it can be a warrantless arrest, because the statute says a peace officer may make an arrest without a warrant if a person, when a person has committed a felony, although not in the officer's presence, or whenever the officer has reasonable cause to believe that the person to be arrested has committed an offense in the officer's presence. I'll spend a little more time on this tomorrow. Some interesting technicalities there. But for now, come to the end of another tall tale. So see you tomorrow.